Today we removed the remains of the balloon, the gondola, and the envelope. They have been removed and taken to an air salvage yard in Dallas. We also interviewed the three ground crew members, the chase crew, if you will. One of the chase crew members was the roommate of the accident pilot. We spent 2 hours talking to him, getting his thoughts, and the other two ground crew members are brothers. We interviewed them together and spent about an hour with them, just trying to get their perspective of what they know. We do know that the pilot received a weather briefing from the flight service station. That's a contract thing put out to Lockheed Martin where pilots can call and file flight plans and get weather briefings. And the pilot did, the day before, call just to get a very general outlook of a weather briefing. As far as any updates on the day of the accident, we will check all of our available sources to see if we can determine whether or not he did get an update of the weather briefing. But nowadays, you can get updates on weather through your iPhone, so we may never really know if he got an update on the morning of, but we at least know that he did establish contact and talk to a person to get an outlook briefing the evening before. While they were at the Walmart in San Marcos, they put up a trial balloon, literally a trial balloon. It's a 15-inch balloon, helium-filled balloon that they release so that they can literally watch and see what the winds are doing. And then after they did that, they were then able to say, well, we see which direction the winds are moving, and then they determined what their launch location would be, which was Fentress Air Park. So once they got to Fentress, they did put up another trial balloon, pilot balloon I should call it, and just to check the winds there as well. Now the ground crew reported that on the drive between the San Marcos Walmart and Fentress Air Park, they drove in and out of patchy fog. They described it as being mostly in the low-lying areas of the roads around streams and creeks, but they did report in and out of some patchy fog. But they did report that it was clear at the point of launch from the Fentress Air Park. The pilots and the ground crew used a navigational app that they could, like social media, where they could share messages between each other. And at 7:26, the ground crew received a position update, if you will, from the pilot. And they said that normally when they get that position update, it is the pilot saying, here's where we are, and we're getting ready to land. We want you to know where we are so you can come and pick us up. So they did receive that positional update at 7:26. When the ground crew could not locate could not locate the balloon or had no more communications with the pilot, they drove around for about an hour trying to call the pilot, even trying to call phone numbers of passengers that they had from the manifest. We have located one of the aircraft maintenance logs, or one of the aircraft's logs, maintenance logs. That log was from the point of manufacture, from the point of first flight in August of 2014 to September of last year. But that's when the logbook became was full. So we could not find the second logbook, and it's very possible that it was on board the balloon and therefore destroyed. But what we do know from the logbook that we do have is that the aircraft did have a current annual inspection. The annual inspection was done in September of last year, so at least we can say at this point that the annual inspection was current. The envelope, the balloon portion of the balloon, a very preliminary on-site examination reveals no evidence of pre-existing failures, malfunctions, or problems. We also got into the performance aspects of the balloon. Could this balloon, under the existing atmospheric conditions, under the heat, the humidity, and the altitude, what pilots would refer to as density altitude. Could they lift this load to altitude? And we found that under these conditions, the temperature that existed, which I think was 76 degrees, right around 76, that balloon could have been able to lift, should have been able to lift between 42 and 4,400 pounds in addition to the weight of the balloon. So as somebody pointed out, if they had 20 passengers that weighed 200 pounds each, they still would have been legally within their weight limitations. However, we will compute that as carefully as we can to see what the actual weights were of the passengers and occupants and everything else that may have been on board. An examination of the balloon envelope indicates that the top vent, the vent was open. As you know, they can control a balloon somewhat by opening and closing vents, and the top vent was open, which is consistent with a landing maneuver. There was also evidence of the cables being pulled, stretching of the cables that would control those vents. Yesterday, most of you probably saw that we had a cherry picker down there, 140 feet up in the air. That was utility crews with NTSB personnel on board to inspect the wires. There's evidence of multiple points of contact. There's evidence of arcing along the wires. And for about 30 feet along the wires, there was evidence of abrasion. Of the 59 balloon accidents prior to this one in the United States, over the past 5 years, there was one other accident involving a Kubitschek balloon. That was July the 2nd of 2015 in Fort Carson, Colorado. And what the NTSB determined the cause of that accident to be was a hard landing due to the pilot's improper burner control. But we also learned through the FAA's database that there was an incident involving a Kubitschek balloon, and that one involved the same operator as the accident flight. That involved Heart of Texas hot air balloon rides. So it was the same operator, but a different pilot and a different balloon, but the same type of balloon, the Kubitschek. So if I were to include that incident, plus Saturday's accident, plus the one of a year ago, it'd be 3 events that we're aware of involving, in the United States, involving the Kubitschek balloons. And I'll point out that at least one of those was involved a pilot improper operation of the balloon, of the burner. The event that I referred to that was by the same operator, the incident, that was August the 3rd of 2014. It involved a hard landing in a church soccer field. Our investigators are wrapping up their on-scene activities. We have some investigators leaving tomorrow, and the last investigators will leave on Wednesday. I want to emphasize that just because we're leaving this scene does not in any way mean that our investigation is through. In fact, just the opposite. This is the very beginning of what will be a long and comprehensive investigation. When we go back to Washington, we'll continue to collect factual information. We'll start the analysis phase, start trying to put together the pieces of this jigsaw puzzle. The question is, if pilots have had prior alcohol or drug-related offenses, are they required to report that to the FAA? And it depends. A balloon pilot is not required to hold an FAA medical certificate. Do we have any indication of what may have caused the balloon to fly into the power lines? And at this point, I'm sorry to say that we do not. And I think that's going to be a difficult question to answer, but one that I hope that we can answer. Is it my sense that he was trying to land the vent being open would be consistent with the pilot attempting to land. The question is there any requirement for a pilot, any pilot, to report any criminal activity to the FAA? And
convictions.
Convictions. I'm not absolutely positive about that. I know that the FAA medical requirement is to check yes or no on that block, but I don't know for sure what the regulations are. I think the regulations say that I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that.
Okay,
I know that the medical requirement is. I want to thank you all for being out here, and very tragic situation. I want to emphasize that our whole purpose in life, the reason that the NTSB is here, we're here to find out what happened so we can keep it from happening again.